Shrug family, this week on Barbell Shrugged, Zach Moore is coming in, and today we're talking about nutrition. Actually, a very, very cool conversation. I would say that there's very few times where my mindset and kind of like the framework that I understand nutrition or kind of any of these subjects after nearly 30 years of learning about them are radically shifted. And today's conversation is really cool, talking about kind of the spectrum that your calories live on. The idea that you are not just designated to a specific number of calories, but as you get healthier, as you get stronger, as you build more muscle, as you have more energy, those numbers can actually go up where you're eating as much food as possible without actually gaining weight. And Zach today on the show is going to be digging in on exactly how he does that with our clients inside Rapid Health Optimization. And as always, friends, you can head over to aratelab.com. That is the signature program inside Rapid Health Optimization, aratelab.com, ARETELAB.com. Friends, let's get into the show. Welcome to Barbell Shrugged. I'm Anders Warner, Doug Larson, Coach Travis Mash. Today on Barbell Shrugged, our main man, the nutritionist, Zach Moore from Rapid Health Optimization. Dude, I'm fired up to have you on here today.
Yeah, it's great to be here. I've been listening to you guys, goodness, I don't know how long, but a long time.
At least like almost a year in meetings. We probably like sometimes I'm like, man, why do all the coaches and everybody listen to this show? They should be sick of hearing from us. But it's great.
No, well, I think Doug and I
Now
talked about it a long time ago, but I think I got started around the similar time to when you guys did. Like when I became a strength coach was, I don't know, like 2012, 2014 sometimes.
Oh,
And that
the
was like,
OG days. That was like
yeah,
Mash's first show.
yep.
Yeah, yeah.
Down in Miami. Mash was out partying, drinking whiskey on the show.
That was my favorite podcast to date.
Good
I know
days.
we got to do some more in-person
Yo,
shows.
Mash,
Just for like,
if you rewind, if you roll back the time hop on Mash's that episode down in Miami, you have enough whiskey in your system to talk smack to the entire weightlifting and powerlifting
world.
community. You're like, I'm in
Yeah,
Miami, I'm on Barbell Shrugged, a little bit of
I'm
sauce is going into my body right now, and I'm about to just lay it down for
I'm gonna
everyone.
tell the truth. Here's how I really feel.
That was like 2012, wasn't it?
I am dominant. Yeah, so
12
exactly. Like,
or 2014-ish, probably something like
Probably
that.
13, 14. Yeah, 13.
yeah,
God, that's too good.
I know. I
Uh,
just told the
Yeah,
truth is all I did. I just told the truth.
yeah.
yeah.
We did remove, or rather, didn't post a handful of shows because of the drinking. We were like, I don't know. Let's rein it back in a little bit. Moderate the
Guys, it's
alcohol
like,
on this
guys,
show.
people are
On this,
listening.
on this health podcast we're doing.
I mean, but this was like, this was like, it wasn't too much. It was just enough to
No,
get
just
me
enough.
honest. It was like, it
It was
was,
at a
we
time
weren't
in life. There was like a time in life where you were like, this is a really good idea. And you go, what would make it better? Maybe a little bit of drinking. And then
a
you realize
little bit.
that makes it
Little.
so much worse. And then you have to stop
Nah,
all
it
this
didn't. I
drinking
thought it made
stuff.
it great. Got told the same. Like, I just told the truth. It was just a little, like everything in moderation.
I love
Still
that.
refer to
That's
So,
so
that house
funny.
people still refer to that house as the Miami Coke Mansion in regular conversations. We put like
oh
5
gosh,
people on that house. The house was enormous on Miami
it
Beach.
was so much fun though. It was so much fun.
Too
Mhm.
good.
So,
Zach,
Rad
that's when you started listening to Barbell Shrugged, the behind the scenes here. Let's roll into adaptive metabolisms. You brought this up pre-show, and I'd love kind of understanding your definition of that, knowing that many of the people think that they just are born with a metabolism and they're stuck with it forever. But take it away, man.
Yeah, so it's just something that, a lot of clients that come into Rapid, they feel, pretty good, but, they just have some issues. Like their performances went down, like, maybe hormonal profile is not great. And one goal I have for a lot of clients, we hear a lot about like too many people are overeating, like we need to cut back. But for a lot of Rapid clients, like I try to get them to eat as much food as they can while still kind of maintaining their weight if that's their goal. Because the idea is, right, we all have this range of calories that we can maintain our weight on. And because it doesn't make sense, right? If I don't consume exactly 2,327 calories, like I'm going to gain weight or lose weight. So we all kind of have this range of calories that's possible. Our body fights to stay the same. And so some people have a metabolism where it's very adaptive in that they can actually eat quite a bit higher calories and not gain weight. Like naturally what happens is when you eat a little bit more, like you have different processes that happen in your body. Like body temperature will go up a little bit, heart rate will increase a little bit. You'll start fidgeting a little bit more. These adaptive people will typically. Also, too, like you'll start fueling other processes in your body that may have been lacking energy before. So, for example, if you have been under eating for quite some time or kind of eating on the low end of your calories, it's very possible that like your body, takes away energy from testosterone production or heat production in your body, or your gastric emptying actually can slow down, like if you're on the low end. So all of these things in your body, like that require energy, it's possible that your body is down regulating those or kind of slowing them to kind of just keep you where you're at. So my goal for a lot of people is, if they're a pretty good body composition, let's get as much fuel into you as possible. So you're feeling good, you're revving on all engines. Like we see hormonal profile increasing, like body temperature going up. And a lot of people think of this as like, you've probably heard of metabolic damage. Oh my gosh, if you undereat, you're going to break your metabolism. It's not damage, it's normal process that happens as we lower our calories, right? Because our body doesn't want to starve. So that's kind of a maybe a starting point.
Yeah, when I find myself, call it like gaining weight, whether it's intentional or unintentional, I always notice that it's not like ooh, I gained a pound today and then a pound tomorrow. It's like I'm eating as much as I want and I feel amazing. Like I'm eating high amounts of food and I feel so good about myself because the scale doesn't really move like at all. Your body's just like fine tuned. It's like humming, you're burning all the calories. And then one day I wake up and I'm like
Boom.
3 or 4 pounds heavier. And I'm like, oh,
There it
that's where
is.
I crossed the line. I went too
Yeah,
far.
yeah.
And then I think people also on the other side, when they're trying to lean out, they don't realize that it's the compounding of eating less versus like today I ate less. And the scale might go down like, half a pound or something like that, just pure food volume not being in your body. But it really isn't until you stack like 2 weeks of those habits on top of each other that you see like ooh, I lost 3 pounds this week. I feel great. Like
Mhm.
this is awesome. But the consistency of it, because your body, um, what do you see kind of in like the higher ranges? Like everybody kind of probably has an understanding of like body weight times 10 to get their basal metabolic rate and then activity level on top of that. What do you see kind of those ranges being of like a healthy caloric intake to stay inside of versus worrying about hitting like the exact number?
Yeah, so it can vary a lot person to person. I mean, I typically say like, for fat loss, somewhere between like 9 to 12 calories per pound of body weight, something like that. Maintenance can be somewhere between 12 to 16. And then to gain weight, somewhere between 16. I mean, I've seen upwards of like 24 calories per pound, which is ridiculous. I mean, that's super high output. But that's usually a rough starting point. But I've seen extreme outliers, like especially in this adaptive framework, like natural bodybuilders are kind of a good because they track everything, right? They're so meticulous with everything. And there's some extreme examples out there. Like, I don't know if you guys are familiar, like Eric Helms. Like this guy, I think he maintains his weight somewhere between like 26 to 2800, something like that. To lose weight, he has to lower his calories. Like, I think he's like around 1400
Ugh.
like
Man.
to lose
Yeah.
weight.
Sounds like breakfast.
Menno Henselmans is another example as super adaptive. Like he can get up to like 3,500, and maintain, but to lose weight, it's like, something crazy. So that's what I'm talking about with these ranges can really vary. And if you're always on that kind of that lower end, like I said, you're just not going to feel your best. Like you said, Andrews, you can go beyond that and then you start gaining weight. So that's where you have to be careful. But um, it's a very slow process of just if things are humming along, if you're feeling good, like I want people to move more, giving them
Yeah.
more fuel. Like when you're under
Right.
eating, you just tend to move less, performance is down. You may feel okay, like you're getting through the day, you're doing your walks, like you just don't have the intensity in the gym. You don't have like the go. And so I just find like fueling someone. It's just so common, especially in our athletes, like just under eating when they could be performing better, recovering better.
Yeah.
Dr. Andy Galpin here. As a listener of the show, you've probably heard us talking about the RTA program, which we're all incredibly proud of. It's a culmination of everything Dan Garner and I have learned over more than 2 decades of working with some of the world's most elite performers, award-winning athletes, billionaires, musicians, executives, and frankly, anyone who just wanted to be at their absolute best. RTA is not a normal coaching program. It's not just macros and a workout plan. It's not physique transformation and pre and post pictures. RTA is something completely different. RTA is incredibly comprehensive and designed to uncover your unique molecular signature, find your performance anchors, and solve them permanently. You'll be working with not one person, but rather a full team of elite professionals, each with their own special expertise to maximize precision, accuracy, and effectiveness of your analysis and optimization plan. RTA isn't about treating symptoms or quick fixes. It's about unlocking your full potential and looking, feeling, and performing at your absolute best, physically and mentally, when the stakes are the highest. To learn more, visit aretelab.com. That's ARETE lab.com. Now, back to the show.
I met a guy this weekend. I was buying we got a masquerade ball this weekend. Sounds cool. But so I'm getting, I'm getting all dressed up. So I'm getting a new suit. The tailor there was saying that he's doing intermittent fasting, but he's literally going 24 hours, and then he gets like a 2 or 3 hour where he can eat whatever he wants, then 24 hours, then 2 to 3, 24. And I just didn't have it in me to be like, man, yeah, you could do that, but like, you're not
Anything's possible.
Yeah, you're gonna lose weight, but you're not gonna have the fuel to fuel those processes you were talking about that the body needs, or like to have the energy to be able to, be with your wife later that night. And there's just better ways, man. Like,
That's actually, there's something called the warrior diet, which is kind of that framework of like eat in a 4 hour window, stuff like that. And OMAD is becoming popular, this one meal a day. And what I usually find with that is, people they feel pretty good during the day, but they're not doing much. Maybe they're just like, kind of like thinking. So it can work for some people, but people want to feel their best through the day and just like get after it. Like it just doesn't work. And also digestively, it's very hard to consume a large meal or a large bolus of food at one time. So I think there are definitely negatives to that.
well, yeah, sure. I think there's a ton of anything extreme like that. I think, there's intermittent fasting can work just like anything else. And like most of the research would say, like, but it's just those big windows like that are crazy. It's like, plus then you get the bounce back that can be pretty hard on people, but just doing it in moderation. Yeah.
Yeah, you may have heard the term like low energy availability. And a lot of people talk about that like in a given, like, over a period of time. It can actually happen across the day. So, like, not just in a 24-hour period, but like if you are not fueling your body at appropriate times throughout the day. And again, I'm talking more about, kind of athletes or, people training, things like that, then you can actually have issues of low energy availability by not fueling yourself around workouts or like during times of
Sure.
performance.
And I'm always, always want to consider myself an athlete till I'm done, like, so I want to be able to, feel good and to be able to, respond to people in a proper manner. And like, I know when I'm not eating, well, like a lot of things are off. How I communicate is off. How I feel when I get home at night with my kids, my wife, it's off. And so there's just so many better ways to do it. Don't do 24-hour fasting, but I
Yeah.
would.
And one thing, like you said, I'm not against time restricted feeding, but one
No,
thing, a big reason why people do it is they feel more satiated, right, on
right.
bigger, less frequent meals. But I've worked with people who do that, and eventually that stops working. Like in
Sure.
that you get used to those really big meals. And so then to go out and just have like a normal meal, like is not satiating to you. Because one mechanism of satiety in our body is like our stretch in our stomach. Like that's one signal to our body that like we've had a good amount of food, we're done eating. And over time, like intermittent fasting, again, I'm not against it at all. I think it's just something to be aware of. If you go into it and you're like, wow, this allows me to eat so much less. I get to eat these huge meals. Those huge meals aren't as satisfying, after you kind of get used to it. And I find those people have a hard time going back to just the, more regular meal spacing.
Well, yeah. Well, even in the long-term research with intermittent fasting, it's the smaller, having like the smaller windows of fasting tends to work long term. It's just another way of limiting calories, though. It's
Yeah.
definitely I feel like the only way you're ever going to optimize things is doing like kind of what you guys do is find out what your body needs and like. But like if you're just trying to lose weight, intermittent fasting can work and it can work for a long time, but it appears in this very, much smaller fasting windows. You don't have to do the extreme ones. And, all you're doing is just finding ways to cut calories, just like
Yeah.
anything else.
But if you're doing
So,
one meal a day, yeah, easy to cut your calories down to an amount that where you would lose body weight slash body fat and potentially muscle mass as well. But how difficult is it then to get enough protein if you're only eating one meal a day? Are you going to smash
it'd
200
be
grams of protein in one
impossible.
meal?
Yeah.
Gross.
It would be very challenging to get that much protein in. And most of the research does point to it's ideal to get, at least 2 to 3 feedings ideally,
Yeah.
there's a process called muscle protein synthesis. And, that needs kind of a protein feeding to stimulate that process. So typically with clients I'm working with, at a minimum, I like to see, 2 protein feedings at least. And then, for athletes or people who are looking to gain muscle, ideally 3 to 4, um, protein feedings a day.
You said much of this already, but say I have an 800 calorie window where my body weight doesn't change between 1600 calories and 2400 calories. I can eat that every day, 1600 calories every day. My body weight stays the same. I eat 2400 calories every day. My body weight essentially stays the same. Um, Short and long term, like what are the pros and cons of just sticking around the 1600 mark in this example versus sticking around the 2400 mark in this example on a daily basis?
Yeah. So like I was saying, there's something called, I think it's called the triage theory, where again, our body sends signals or energy to what's most important. So, typically if we're on that low end of maintenance, it's very possible, like I said, that maybe thyroid output goes down a little bit, or you start just being a little bit cooler, like you're not as, warm. Your heart rate may go down a little bit, like how quickly food moves through your digestive system could slow down a little bit. We always hear like it's so awesome to have like this slow heart rate. Like it's a good sign that you're an athlete, things like that. Well, people who undereat, and again, I'm talking more extreme, like long periods of
Yeah.
time, not necessarily your example, but they tend to have very slow heart rates. Like people who have anorexia, like very underweight, like they have super low heart rates. And, I've read examples of people where they go into the doctor's office and they're like praised for having this low heart rate. And that's not always a great thing if it's not from, exercise, things like that. Also, like I said, you may just get to a point where, like I said, you just don't move as much. You just don't fidget as much. You just don't really have the desire to train, or maybe your training intensity goes down. So, your weight could stay the same, but you're not putting in as much effort. Maybe you slowly kind of lose muscle tissue because of that. You're not putting as much fuel into the system. So those are kind of the
Yeah.
big things that stick out.
You mentioned the kind of the adaptability of kind of having like a range of calories. Based on what factors and how do they implement those factors? Can someone go from having like a window of 500 calories to 800 calories to kind of those extremes that you were talking about, where it sounds like there's like in order to lose weight, needing to eat sub 400, 1400 calories in a day. Obviously like more movement, but are there other things, timing of exercises, et cetera? Is it more consistent throughout the day? Just 10,000 steps? Like what kind of levers can someone pull? Because that really is kind of the goal, is to get from I have to eat, 2,000 calories a day to maintain a stable body weight, or I gain weight or lose weight, to how do I eat between 1,500 and 2,500, or 2,000 to 3,000. That, in my opinion, is the goal of having a really healthy metabolism. Is it is adapting to whatever stimulus you are putting in and maintaining stable health despite the stimulus. Are there things that people can do in order to improve that range?
Yeah, so it's really a matter of just honestly slowly upping your food and seeing what happens. I mean, it depends on how meticulous someone wants to get. I mean, for some people in Rapid, I do have them track their food for a while, and this isn't right for everyone, but I think it's just seeing how you feel, right? Like maybe you have fairly similar meals you eat each day or kind of this template that works for you. Just slowly, maybe add a little bit of food to one meal. Because again, if you've been eating, let's say your range could potentially be 2,000 to 3,000. If you've been eating 2,000 and you immediately go to 3,000, you're going to gain weight at first because your thyroid's a little bit slower. Like I said, your body temperature's a little bit lower. So it's not that you can immediately go between these two ranges. You have to work up to them. So that's what I usually have people do is slowly, let's just slowly, especially if they're, I gave Doug the ranges earlier of, some of these ranges like 9 to 12 calories per pound of body weight, fat loss. If someone right now is eating 10 calories per pound and they're maintaining their weight, I would definitely encourage them to try to bump up slightly and see how they respond. And again, it's fairly slow process because your body has to upregulate things, right? You give it more energy, then whatever process it was down regulating that it feels most important will slowly start kind of increasing over time. So it's more just giving the body more fuel to run more processes, but it is a slow process to make sure you aren't gaining weight. Because again, we all have a ceiling, right? To where we get above that and we will gain. So
But it
it's
is
really,
more kind of like an increase in the calories and then finding stability at each increase or incremental increase versus I would have kind of assumed that there was more like a consistent movement side, and I'm sure that plays into it as well. But that would have been kind of
No,
my
so
main
many
guess.
variables.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, you don't
I would.
necessarily have to move more. Like I said, if more energy is being taken away from testosterone production or, your gastric emptying or all of these things, you don't necessarily have to be moving more. This is not just a component of NEAT, like non-exercise,
yeah,
activity thermogenesis. This is also other things going on under the hood with your physiology. So it doesn't mean you have to move more, but ideally it makes you want to move more. Like you feel just more energetic because you're getting more essentially ATP going through the system. I mean, kind of the, Krebs
yeah,
cycle cranking through. So that's more of the strategy. I mean, there are strategies. I mean, obviously in Rapid we have, the exercise plan. So I usually coordinate with them, like, about that topic and seeing how we can get them more performance that way over
yeah.
time. But it is a slow process. But just for the
e-
individual, it's, you know, slowly up your food,
So,
track your weight.
so that's the question I ask. So, like when you find the window of food, do you say, "All right, we can comfortably shift when we're going to have a workout. We're going to give some extra calories, and we're at way less risk of it causing weight gain." Do you start to make strategy changes once you have the window, or is that
No, just when
irrelevant?
I have the window, I mean, yeah, there does come down to, obviously timing and stuff like that is important, but I want them, if the range is 2,000 to 3,000, I want them trying to eat 3,000 every single day.
And
You
try to
know,
go to the high, no matter what.
yeah, I'm trying
Yeah,
to keep
makes
them
total
up there.
sense.
I want them to eat as much as they can to, again, to feel good. Um,
And like, will the body ever get adjusted to that and finally start to gain? Or do you really find that they can maintain that body weight at that very high end forever?
yeah, I feel like they can. But again, if that high range allows them to train harder, perform better, maybe they gain more muscle, it's
Sure.
very possible that that shift, like maybe it goes from 2,000, 3,000, goes from 2,400 to XYZ. So,
Right.
I mean, there is going to be a limit to that, right? We're all not going to be able to just keep adding muscle. I mean, we all have genetic limits essentially, but um, yeah, that's just what I'm trying to find for the clients to feel their best.
That's
Because,
super cool.
I have some
Yeah.
people come in, I mean, they're seriously consuming like 7 to 8 calories per pound of body weight and they're not losing weight. And, I mean, if they want to
Wow.
lose weight, do you cut their calories? I mean, I know, we could talk about reporting issues, things like that, but I've coached so many people that some people do just have a really low, and you have to build them up first. I've taken people
I
up.
see what you're saying.
up
Yeah.
over time to where they're actually at a much better place where they feel good for a while, and then you can cut and it doesn't take quite as much.
You
So if
think,
I,
okay, so like you take a guy who's got super low calories and you find that window and you hold him at that window for a long time. And then you say, now we've built your processes up, potentially, you got your hormonal system is built. All these things are kicking. Now let's start to drop again. And then you start to lose, even probably less than where you were before. Is that what you're
Yeah,
saying?
yeah, that's kind of the idea. But normally you don't have to hold them there very long because it will take a while to get up to that top end. So I
To
mean, this,
find it. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, so it's, every 2 weeks you might bump a small amount. I mean, this is if we're micromanaging every small detail,
Sure.
but I think it's something people could really start paying attention to because it's just not talked about a lot, like under eating, low energy availability, like, and just, maximizing your
Yeah.
output. So many
But
people
it
want to eat as
obviously
little as
happens.
possible. So many people are
Yeah.
afraid of gaining weight and they're eating as little as possible to like, they're afraid of gaining weight. We all have,
It's,
especially now
yeah.
social media, like everyone's shredded to the bone. That's not always healthy. Like that's not always an
Yeah.
awesome state to be.
AI is a beautiful thing too. You gotta
Oh
chill.
yeah,
Believe
yeah.
it on
I
it.
know. Yeah, everyone we see is
Yeah.
just shredded and happy all the time. Um,
Yeah.
and it's good to have a little, I mean, you want a little bit of body fat. I mean, that produces hormones, things like that. And some people, it's
Yeah.
not sustainable. I mean, there's
Right.
genetic variability across
What's
how lean you can stay and hold.
well, a guy like you said, Eric Helms, I mean, like 100%. Like if whatever he says it takes to lose is right. Cause like we've had him on the show, have we not? Like I feel like he's been on
Yeah.
in my
It's been a
yeah.
while. I don't think I
It's
have.
been a long time. And so
Yeah.
but like if that dude says he has to cut that much to lose weight, it's true. It's
Yeah,
like
and they have
'cause-
another athlete under their coaching company, Dirk Emmerich, who won like, I mean, he's like really good. But he's a lightweight. I think he comes on stage at like 130 to 140. He's the opposite. His metabolism not adaptive at all. I think he maintains, again, he's like small dude to cut. I mean, I think to maintain, he's around like 2,600, 27, maybe 28. To cut, I think he's like at 2,200. And he gets all the way to the
right.
stage. He's probably the most shredded natural out there. I mean, I think he won the Yorton, whatever. I'm not super familiar, but again, he doesn't have a super wide range, so it can vary.
Yeah.
That's
so
super
It's
crazy.
back into
something.
the example that you were talking about earlier was someone they coming in and they're eating 7, 8 calories per pound of body weight. They're radically under eating. They're still not losing weight. They're still not getting leaner. If you're that person, you probably are afraid to bump your calories. Like you're just going to put all this weight back on that maybe you just lost before you put yourself in this hole. Um, or you're a trainer or a coach of some type, and you get someone that comes to you and they're like, I can't lose any more weight, and they show you their diet and the calories are excessively low, and then you're like, man, should I bump this person's calories? Like I don't want to get them as a client, and then the next week they gain 2 pounds, and they're like, fuck this,
Bail
guy's
them.
going somewhere else. He
I
doesn't
know exactly.
right? Like I want, and then they go tell their friends, like, I want to lose weight. He told me to eat more food, and I gained a bunch of weight. What an idiot!
You're you're
So,
fired. Yeah.
It's a
how
really
do
tricky,
how do you handle that situation?
it's
And
a really tr
just
tricky
about
spot to
calories,
be
or
in
there's
as
like
a
a macro
coach.
tweak in there somewhere as well.
Yeah, it's very possible it could be macronutrient composition, could be food comp. I mean, we know that like foods that are highly processed. Like, let's say I
Yeah.
have 100 calories of chips versus 100 calories of an apple. Those calories are not equated. So, I mean, there's definitely a difference, right? Because our body has to break down the apple. The processing makes it easier for us to digest, store. So, there's definitely differences like that. But I think ultimately it's just a hard conversation you have to have. Do you want to be the coach that cuts their calories to 5 calories per pound, and helps them lose weight and
No.
awesome? And then they leave you and they're stuck. Like, what are they going to do now? When they start to increase their calories, they're gonna gain weight right away. So really, you have to play the long game. You have to explain to them, we're not going to lose fat right now, to be honest. Like, we're not.
Yeah.
What we're going to do is we're going to build you back up to be healthy, to feel good, and ideally we don't gain weight. So we'll increase calories slowly, again, getting things revving again, assuming all else is okay, right? There's not an underlying dysfunction, I mean, something going on behind, that's serious medically, something like that, then we are just going to slowly increase as high as we can, start these till they start feeling good. And when it's time, we do it. But you have to help them understand that it's It's not going to be quick. Like it is going to take time.
Yeah.
So,
Right.
so first you make sure they're eating high quality food, kind of the basics of not processed, whole foods, etc. And then you're making sure their macros are at least somewhere in the ballpark of reasonable, we'll say. And then after that, what you're like 100, 200 calories a week, that type of thing, and you're meticulously tracking their body weight to make sure that it's not increasing at a rate that they're unhappy with. And then once it starts to go up, then you can say, okay, we kind of hit the limit. Now you're starting to gain weight, maintain there for a while. They're at the top end of their range, and then start to ratchet it back down with high quality food and a good macro split.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, again, if we're being super meticulous, I would have them track their weight. We would take the average across the week, and then it'd be every 2 weeks is when I make the decision. Because again, the body can, it can hold water, everything like that. So it usually takes 2 weeks to assess, like, okay, are they truly gaining, truly losing? Um, and then we'll make a bump. And the bump depends on how, if I have someone that's 300 pound, I mean, like 250 heavy, like an athlete, I'm able to make slightly, bigger jumps than someone who's eating, not very much. But yeah, somewhere between, I mean, if it's on the low end, like 50 to 150, if it's a bigger person, we may go, 150 to 250 potentially. And then it's just
Yeah.
every couple. Usually I will try though, so I won't right away. Let's say we get to a 2 week period and they actually gained a little bit. I won't immediately pull back. I'll actually hold there another 2 weeks. If they stay stable there, I'll try to bump again. It's usually like if I have 2 to 3 in a row where like the weight is going up, that's when I'll be like, okay, we're back. And you just have to, I don't know, you really have to convince them like to be patient,
Yeah.
to understand like we have a plan.
Yeah.
Mm.
We have a few weight contested athletes from, boxing, weightlifting, things along those lines. Do you find that it's easier for them to cut weight? Because they're doing it kind of like having these like massive weight cuts, call it quarterly, maybe every 6 months if that's where their career's at. If they are able to get to these higher levels and maintain kind of the higher end of a stable body weight, let's say that gets to 3,000 calories or something along those lines. Do you see the weight drop more efficiently going from 3,000 to 2,800 to 26, or do they still need to get kind of all the way down to those really low numbers? If they're playing at the higher end, is the lower end of stable that far away from kind of the median, or are you able to start cutting weight at what may have been in the past, like eating in a surplus
So it's usually that you still have to get very
all the way
low.
down?
But the thing is that it's easier, right? Because you're coming from a place of like there's really this idea of diet fatigue. Like you just, you're always feeling sluggish. I mean, psychologically, it's much harder. So, I mean, unless by them eating a lot, they're able to be better body composition, then usually that low end is still there. Like you can't move that unless you truly kind of shift their body composition wise. So they do usually have to get low, but it's an easier process because,
Yeah.
again, they're not fatigued from it. They have more diet structure in place, all of those things. And they're already like in a place of moving more, right? That's a big factor. If you're coming from a place of pretty low calories, not moving a lot, and then when you cut calories, your NEAT is already super low, it's hard to bump that up more.
I would imagine if they're with the activity level of that high, it's a much easier process. Not that
Mhm.
it's easy to go that low in anything, but having that activity level training multiple times a day and just the consistent cardiovascular work that they're putting in, just rolling or whatever it is, it's got to be a slightly easier process.
Yeah. Well, and you're coming from a place like, I mean, if your hormones are in a better place because you're eating more, then that initial cut is going to be easier. Like you're going to lose weight faster, but usually to eventually get as lean as they need to get, you have to cut low. But the process is probably going to be faster. Like it won't take as long because again, they're already starting from a place of, just a higher metabolism.
Yeah.
But the calories will eventually have to get to that low end to get as lean as they need, most likely.
Even in a where is it in non-weight contested sports, where do you see kind of like the highest levels of energy? Is that also kind of associated with eating at like the higher end of that range, or is there more like a median when it comes to really like the optimizing performance, or somebody kind of like mashes clients that may have like a 4 or 5 day window where they need to play 2 or 3 matches in a day? Like how do you kind of stabilize that. I personally, anytime I was competing, I always remember thinking like, I don't enjoy eating that much, but also I probably wasn't that good at competing. So maybe what better athletes are doing is eating a lot more throughout the day. But I always like, I never really felt like I needed that much food on game days. It was always,
No, you for sure did. Yeah, you
yeah.
Yeah,
See,
did.
Mash is
that's
telling
what I
me I
was.
didn't even touch my best. Imagine what I could have been, dude.
Well,
Slightly
Yeah.
that's
more
where I
above
feel
average.
that's where there's strategic, like ways to increase caloric density without feeling too full. So that's where
Right.
if I have someone who has those days where they have super high energy outputs, that's where I would include some easy to digest carb sources. So I'd most likely keep, let's say we work their calories up on average to 4,000, something crazy because they have high energy output. I would keep them there like all days, but on those double days, that's where we'd include some very easy to digest carbohydrate sources around their training, and that makes it easy to then adjust. So then on the off day, they have this template. For most of our clients, we give them a meal plan. That meal plan would be pretty stationary across days. It would just change then around their training. And I hear it all the time, like how much better performance is when we do include, more fuel intra, just in terms of recovery,
Oh,
everything like that.
100%.
So,
You
yeah.
might have to even because you got to change for or consider the fact you're going to be nervous. So like, there's going to cortisol is going to be a little higher, so it is harder to eat on those days. So like for me, it worked to drink most of my calories. Like I would even my protein, my carbs, I would drink the majority, and it changed. It was a game changer. You
Yeah.
see most you know,
Well,
powerlifters, you think, oh, it's not that important. It's for sure important.
well,
It's
that's
like you
what
come to the final deadlift, I felt great. They were like tanking. So,
Yeah, we talk about a foundation of whole foods, and that is great. But that's where,
yeah,
like, for example, in an athlete, if they're eating a whole food diet of 4,000 calories, they're going to feel like trash. I mean, they're going to feel
yeah,
awful, they're going to feel slow, they're going to feel heavy. So, this is where
yeah.
selective food choice, like strategic food choices, really helps because it's very possible
I
you didn't
love the fact
you
y'all do
need to
that.
eat more
Right.
because you were consuming, like, a lot of fiber, a lot of whole foods, like that's where you have to play with this. And, even if you feel good, like in the moment, I guarantee you, if you had the ability to add more fuel to your system and like your body needed it, you would have felt better. Um,
Mhm.
Totally. It's just, yeah, it's not the place for like chicken breast,
yeah,
broccoli, and your almonds. It's a place, you just get it in however you can best get it in where it can be digested. Like
yeah.
such a game changer. When I started drinking my calories, because I would get nauseous. I would be in the back and I would try to eat. I'd be like, "Ugh," but
Mm.
when I started to drink it or find strategic ways to get in the calorie, even excess that day, the day of competing, because you got to consider that I just had that horrible weight cut. It was a huge game changer for
And
me.
that's another benefit of eating more too, is you can get in more micronutrients. So if you're eating, I'm a huge fan of micronutrients. Like we hear
Yeah,
macronutrients all the time, carbs, fats, proteins, all of that. But micronutrients are so important for how you feel, your overall health. I know we've
totally.
had Dan on a zillion times talking about different ones. Um, and when you're eating more food, that gives you more opportunity to get in more micronutrients. So for an athlete that's
Right.
consuming 4,000 calories a day, he is easily going to get in his micronutrients unless he's just eating, and I've seen
The
it. Yeah.
same thing. Yeah, yeah.
Like, I mean, that's going to be hard, but you're more likely to get those, hit those micronutrient targets if are consuming more food.
I know Andy, or was it Dan that said that the macros are there for what you look like, and it's the micros is how you feel and how you perform. That was a
Yeah.
game changer for me when I think it was probably Dan,
Because Dan,
but
Yeah.
like,
calories are the
yeah,
size of your body, macros are what it looks like, and
yeah,
micros are how
micros
you
is how you
feel.
perform.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think it's if you're below, I think it's 1,600 calories. What is it? I think it's almost impossible to hit the RDA for micronutrients if you're below something like that. It's just very hard. I mean, unless you're just like, I mean, I'm not talking about multivitamins, athletic greens, things like that. But if you're eating whole
Mm,
foods, I think if you're below like 1,500 to 1,600, it's very challenging, if not impossible to hit.
sure.
A's.
So you would have to do things perfect. That's what I love about, Rapid is that you guys give them those three options. And it's like, a guy like, well, I don't know if I should say his name, but let's just say I got one of the world's best pickleball players. And like that dude, like he has to have choices because like, he'll have to, they'll fly him to Paris and be like, now you got to work with all these people. That dude gets in everything we ask him to do, but he has the choices. He's not going to be able to have his little meal perfectly done out.
Yeah.
He'll just has to get it in where it fits in those days. But I mean, that's brilliant. It's real life. It's not real life to say every single day you're going to eat 4 meals and you're going to have broccoli and you're going to have all these. Like, it's not
Yeah.
real. Like,
You got a
I'm on a
marathoner coming your
plane.
way too. That was his number one question. He was like, I don't want to be on this like overly crazy thing. He's like, I got a life to live. He also runs like two and a
Right.
half hour marathons. This guy's total freak. He's just like, I'm like, dude, you run 2.5 hour marathons. We got you.
Yeah.
Don't worry. Let's go like
Yeah.
90% good, and then one day a week
Yeah.
eat like perfect. How's that sound? He's like,
Yeah.
I got
Bro.
you. Like you're good, man. You're out there just hammering the pavement,
Yeah.
and
Totally.
you'll
With
be
that
all
much
right.
energy output, you have so much opportunity to get in
Yeah,
enough
Wait, so
food and therefore micronutrients.
yeah.
Travis mentioned like the three types of meals. He really is referring to what we call optimal, sufficient, convenient meal plans. We have kind of like different categories of meal plans. We don't, it's not always like perfectly like that for every person. Depends on the specific client needs. But Zach, can you dig into that a little more? Kind of like the different types of meal plans that we provide for people?
Yeah, so like you said, there are three different ones. The optimal one is, to be honest, I don't love the name optimal. Like, it doesn't mean if you don't follow that exact one, you're not optimized, but it's more of like a teaching tool. So it tells the exact foods to eat, like the exact times,
Mm.
list out the calories, the macros, the fiber, the saturated fat. I mean, it lists everything for that person. The sufficient one is more, it's almost identical to the optimal, but it's more like instead of me listing broccoli, it would say, hey, have a serving of vegetables. Instead of saying like chicken breast, it would say have a lean protein. So it allows you that flexibility to choose foods that you enjoy, um, and allows you more variety. Because I don't expect you to eat, yeah, chicken breast and broccoli if that's
Yeah.
on the meal plan every single day. Um, and then the convenient one is more of just non-perishable food items. Like Travis said, we have some
Right.
athletes, and more than just athletes, we have people that travel all over the world. They
Right.
need options if they're in an airport, if their
Yeah,
car
man.
breaks down or taxi, or they
Yeah.
can't find a restaurant. Like,
I
um,
always describe it to people. How do you get jacked in a gas station? That's a
that's
real strat. You got to
Amen.
know what to
that's
do.
That's absolutely.
I'm so
Yeah,
using that in my videos now.
Anders,
yeah.
you
How to
say the
get
most
jacked in a
brilliant
gas station.
stuff.
Yeah.
Exactly. Like I've been there. You go in
Yeah.
there and you find you get some like was it beef
Like
jerky?
like two
Like
or three, yeah, beef jerky, two or three bananas, an apple.
yeah.
It's
Sure.
They
weird that
sell that, they
nobody
sell
even
the
knows that
protein
in
drinks
Seven
now.
Eleven,
Yeah.
yeah, 7-Eleven has bananas and apples. Every single one of them. Nobody
No.
goes in there for it. Not
Absolutely.
when there's a Slurpee staring at you.
Absolutely.
You got to
Oh
learn how to get
man.
jacked in a gas station
So
if
that's
you
the
want to
idea. I
commit
would
to
Dude,
say
this
that.
life.
Yeah.
I did Whole 30 and I could still stop in a gas station. There's
Yeah,
options.
there's options.
Yeah,
You just got to be creative. You got to be
yeah.
able to shop at
You got to
any
know what you're good. You
gas
got to know
station.
what you're looking for is what it is, or just
Heck,
go
I
and
know
get that big
exactly what to look
100 in your
for.
life. It's like a double candy bar with a little bit of protein. Get after it.
Yeah, the big. Oh yeah, it's
The
like chewing
metrics,
like a
man, they still
cut.
make
Yeah,
those
The
things.
big, oh,
yeah,
do they? Oh my gosh,
Oh
that's
yeah, you probably have to go to the gas station that hasn't re-upped their protein supply in the last decade, but they're out there.
yeah.
We're
You're
gonna get hit
probably
by
still digesting the first one you had years ago, so it's probably still in your belly.
we're gonna get hit by an asteroid, and the aliens will come back. Like next civilization will come back, and they'll be like, "What is this big 100 bar? The
It
Super Cookie
has
Crunch?"
survived.
until they eat
Yeah,
it, and they'll understand. They'll be like, "Oh, I see why they have these."
I see
Yeah,
how we
right.
took them over so easily. Yeah,
I love those things. This is my favorite protein bar ever.
Yeah, I put them in meal plans all the time.
Metrics. They nailed
No,
it.
not really.
Um,
Like, what
actually,
about food allergies? Do you like, can you develop food allergies over time? Let's say you eat too much of the same foods over and over and over. Can you develop allergies, or is like what causes someone to be allergic to a certain type of food?
So I've
That's a
heard
deep
that,
question.
but I don't know if that's true. Maybe one of you guys can comment on that. I don't
I,
believe I've seen research to support that idea because I've heard that like you consume eggs too often, like you develop an allergy. I don't think there's any, I don't know, don't quote me on that, but I don't think there's any truth to that.
Yeah,
the
I've
reason
heard
I
it.
ask is like
I've
I
never
love shrimp,
done research on it. I'm
and I
not
was
Yeah.
sure.
And
yeah, and
so
I
the difference
developed this
between allergies and
analogy.
intolerances. So an
Right.
allergy is like your body, has an immune response and like, you have issues, like major issues. Like the most common ones I think are eggs and nuts. Dairy is somewhat common.
Fish.
But
Yeah.
there is also intolerance.
Shellfish, maybe.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you don't do well with a particular food. So definitely differences there.
Yeah, it broke my heart because I love shrimp and shrimp and grits. It's like a lowland. I never had it growing up because in the mountains it's not a big thing. But my wife introduced me to shrimp and grits, and I love it. And
So you
like
can't have
anyway,
shrimp or
no,
shellfish
like
in general.
all of a sudden one day we were eating like shrimp, and my face was getting red, and I started getting feeling my throat get all like I was getting like
Okay.
choked on things.
Yeah.
My throat was swelling. I'm like, dang it. It broke my
Yeah.
heart. So then I said it had to be something else. So I tried it literally like two other times. And I literally
You're
almost
like
killed
hitting
myself.
yourself with an EpiPen, and you're going, it's got to be something else for
I know.
sure.
I know.
The final time it got dangerous. We were at Sornex, and I like thought I was gonna have to call 911. I'm like, damn it. I was so mad.
Yeah,
And
my wife can't eat shellfish either. Yeah.
somebody out there needs to find a cure to that. I'll do
I'd be
anything.
upset. I love,
What
yeah.
is a grit, by the way, man? Living in the South, you see people with a big old plate of grits, and I go, what in the
It's just a
world?
grain, and it like I don't know what it is to be honest.
I
Like
don't know.
a grain.
People try to explain it, and I still can't know. It's like they explain it like you are right now, and I go, still need an answer.
Yeah, I actually don't
Yeah,
know.
I don't know.
Zach, where can people find you, man?
Yeah, so I'm not super active, but I'm on Instagram. I think I'm Zach M Fitness. So that's probably the
Baby,
best
he
place.
doesn't even remember his handle. That is impressive, sir.
I know, I know. Um,
I see what you guys do. You guys get those super smart dudes who just aren't going to do social media, and then you do it for them.
They're
Really,
I
out
just
there
don't have
learning.
time.
They're
Like
out
you
there
would think
honing their craft.
I work on the
yeah.
computer all the time. You'd think I'd be more tech savvy, and I can barely even share a story. I had to message Flav. You guys had Flavio on 2 weeks ago. I was like, how do I share the new website thing? Like
Son,
IG
I would
message.
much rather just do my work. It's brilliant. I'd much rather just do my craft than social media. Like,
Yeah.
I'd rather coach. I'd rather do what I do instead of worrying about what story I put up. Like, I want to create the story and let someone else put it up. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah, I enjoy
I
just
want to
working.
do what I do. Yeah. Like, it's my craft. I lost my way for a minute, started want to do social media. I'm not a social media
I keep
person.
telling myself
I'm a
I'm going
coach.
to. I don't know why, but then I
Yeah.
don't.
Yeah.
Nah, just get somebody to do it for you if you feel like you need to. But like, I'd rather just work for Rabbit and just bring me these world class athletes and let me crush it.
Uh-huh.
I
Right.
love it.
There you
Yeah,
go.
hell yeah, so much fun.
Doug Larson. Oh, Mash. You were just talking, and I forgot about
Oh,
you. Where can the people find you?
well, if you really want to get jacked,
Working
go to
hard
Rapid,
somewhere. Yeah.
and like get the whole kit and caboodle. But otherwise, go to matchelite.com. But either one's fine with me. Kit and caboodle. Kit and caboodle.
There you go.
You guys ever heard that word, kit and caboodle?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Not on
Okay.
the Shrug Show, but yeah, in life.
Yeah,
Coaching.
now you have
Never heard it.
I feel like my grandma probably said it
Bring it back.
once.
Oh
the
yeah.
whole kit and caboodle,
Douglas E.
baby.
Larson.
I'm on Instagram, Douglas C. Larson. And we just started an
And
Instagram account because we haven't had Instagram
oh, look at that. We were just talking about that.
Arate Performance Lab on Instagram. Check it out.
And I'm Anders Varner at Anders Varner, and we are Barbell Shrugged, Barbell_Shrugged. And make sure you get over to aratelab.com. That is where you can learn about all the lab lifestyle and performance testing analysis, program design, and all things to make you feel and perform your best. And you can access all of that over at aratelab.com, ARATELAB.com. Friends, we'll see you guys next week.